G'day guys, Dean here from Blog for the Blood God, and next weekend I'm going to be attending the Terracon Grand Tournament here in Australia. It's going to be a fucking ripper of an event, and I wanted to share with you guys the list that I'm going to be running for that event. Now, this list is going to be very similar to lists that I've ran previously, so make sure you go back and check out my video on my Undefeated Emperor's Children list. I'll put a link in the description. This list is going to be very similar to that. And also check out my video on my masterclass for the Master of Executions, because he was a pivotal unit in that list, and he's also going to be a pivotal unit in this list. I went into great detail to break down the specifics on how he operates, the results you can expect with him, how to work him into your list, how to deploy him in games, all that sort of stuff. So that's a real deep dive on the Master of Executions. In this video, basically what I want to do is I want to talk about the changes that I've made to that previous undefeated list, and talk about why I've made those changes, what I hope to gain, and how the overall synergy of this list is going to work for this event. So it's an evolution, if you will, of that previous list, utilizing the same sorts of tools and the same sorts of techniques and strategies as the previous list. So I'm not going to re-go over everything, so make sure you check out that previous video and also check out the Master of Executions Masterclass. This video, I'm going to be talking about synergy, I'm going to be talking about the units, I'm going to be talking about the changes. So without further ado, let's get into my list for Terracon 2022. Alrighty guys, here's the list laid out in all of its glory. So I'm going to run you through all of the units that I've taken, the upgrades that I've given them, all of that sort of stuff. I won't be going, like I said in the intro, I won't be going into as much detail as I have in previous videos because I don't want to go over the same ground twice unnecessarily. So make sure you check out that previous video if you want to know the specific details of the stratagems and of all of that sort of stuff. But basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to break down this specific list, and then I'm going to do it a little bit more detailed than previous videos on how these units synergize with each other. So that's what this video is going to be more about unit synergy and game strategy, whereas the previous video was more about stratagem utilization and wargear upgrades and those sorts of things. So if you want to get a bit more information on how to really get all of the power you can out of the Emperor's Children, check out my previous video. If you want to get more information on how to get the most out of your Master of Executions, check out my Master of Executions Masterclass. And for this video, we're going to be talking about the natural evolution of the list, what I've put in, what I've changed, why I've changed it, and how all of these units really work together to create a cohesive fighting force. So basically the list is the same three characters from my previous list. So you've got the Master of Executions as my warlord, you've got a sorcerer, he's in there for warp time and prescience, the same as he was previously, and you've got the Dark Apostle, and he's in there with his two disciples, and he's got the same relics, the same, everything is the same on these guys. Then in your troop choices, this time I've got 2 units of 10 Chaos Cultists and a unit of 20, same unit of 20 Noise Marines, all the same war gear, so all Sonic Blasters, couple Blast Masters, Lightning Claw, Icon of Excess, all the bells and whistles, right? Now, this is where we start to deviate from the previous list. So the previous list had a unit of 8 Chosen and a Rhino. So we've got 8 Chosen here with Lightning Claws, couple of Chainswords, Icon of Excess, double Lightning Claws on the Sergeant, all that good shit in the Rhino. Now they were present in the last list. What I've done differently in this list is I've actually added a second unit of Chosen because they were so good in the games that I just really wanted to get a second unit in. So this time I've added a second unit. It's a unit of 10, all with Lightning Claws, bunch of Chainswords, same deal with the twin Lightning Claws on the Sergeant, same deal with the Icon of Excess, and these guys are going in the Dreadclaw. And then on top of that, I have the standard 2 units of Terminators, the same as last time, with Lightning Claws on everybody, Melter Guns. So realistically, I've taken my undefeated list, and what I've done is I've pulled out 1 unit of 10 Terminators with Combi Bolters, and I've used those points to put in a unit of 10 Chosen with Lightning Claws in a Dreadclaw. Now basically what this does is it's a bit of a trade-off, because you lose some of the durability, because 10 Terminators for 10 Chosen, not as durable. They have the worse armor saves, they have less wounds, you know, those sorts of things. You also lose a little bit of shooting damage, well actually quite a bit of shooting damage, because instead of having the 10 Combi Bolters, you now have just 10 Chosen. Some of them have bolters, but most of them are Lightning Claw and a Chainsword. So you lose quite a bit of shooting power from that unit as well. But what you gain in transaction for that is you gain the Dreadclaw, which is an entire new unit, right? So it's, whilst this unit serves as a transport for them, it's really important to not underestimate the Dreadclaw, because it is a unit in its own right. Basically, after the Chosen disembark, that Dreadclaw can fly around, it can get Stranglehold. It's actually not bad in combat, like it goes in with 3 damage attacks, like it's actually no slouch. It's 12-inch move, so it can advance, it's pretty fast, it flies over things and it drops mortal wounds on them. So it's a pretty good unit in of its own right. But what this really does, which is a huge pivot for the list, is it gives me a combat bomb that can hit turn 1. So previously the way the list worked is you had 3 Terminator bombs, they were your combat bombs, and then you had the big Noise Marine unit. And the theory was the Noise Marine unit would sit there and it would just basically shoot anything that was visible, and it would encourage my opponent to hide. And then what would happen is that my opponent would hide behind all these ruins and behind all these walls, and then the Terminators would drop in and dig them out. That's the general game plan. So that's how those 2 units synergize really well. Because the Noise Marines, they just sit there somewhere central, and your opponent is so terrified of these Noise Marines because they are able to kill 2 knights in a single shooting phase, or like infinite number of gaunts or horde or guardsmen or whatever. So their damage profile is so diverse and so intense that people hide. And when people are hiding, that's when combat deep strike bombs are really powerful, because you can't really hide from them. And generally what happens is if somebody wants to hide, they'll cluster behind a ruin. So there might be one really good ruin in their deployment zone. They'll put several units in there to try to hide. And when you drop, you can charge in and clear out several units. Whereas if you don't have the Noise Marines, your opponent's going to spread out. And if they spread out, they're all over the table. It's actually really hard for your combat bombs to do what they need to do, because you have to drop your 10 Terminators down and kill 1 unit, and then they kill your 10 Terminators in return, and you don't get the value. So the Noise Marines encourage your opponent to cluster, and then the Terminators drop in and kill those clusters. So that was the previous synergy. However, one of the things that I noticed was that if my opponent clustered turn 1, I didn't have a way to break in and get value out of that. So I would deploy the Noise Marines aggressively, deploy them front and center, and my opponent, tell my opponent how powerful the Noise Marines are, and they'd be like, fuck, I need to hide. So they'd hide everything. And then if we rolled off to see who went first, and I got first turn, I was like, well, fuck, what do? The Noise Marines can't kill anything because they're hidden, and I can't bring Terminators in until turn 2. So my turn 1 was kind of wasted. And then what would happen is I'd have to move the Noise Marines forward, and then my opponent would go, okay, cool, we're going to move everything over here so that we can shoot the Noise Marines, but only a couple of Noise Marines can see me, so when they shoot on death, they're only killing a little bit, and your opponent was sort of able to play around it quite well. So that was kind of frustrating. So basically what I've done, the main pivot in this, is that I've put the Dreadclaw in with the Chosen, and that way, turn 1, I can move up into the center of the table, my opponent's going to hide, and then I can drop the Dreadclaw in onto one of the middle objectives, the Chosen disembark out of that, and then the Chosen can honor the Prince, charge in, and blow something up turn 1. So it essentially means that I'm going to have a turn 1 Chosen bomb, a turn 2 Terminator bomb, and then a turn 3 Terminator bomb, as opposed to the previous list, which had lent more into the durability of the Terminators by going turn 2, you're going to have either 2 Terminator bombs, and then turn 3, a third, or turn 2, you're going to have 1 Terminator bomb, and then on turn 3, you're going to have 2 more. So the idea with that was that basically you're overwhelming them with Terminators, and you're dropping them into cover, and then they've got Armor of Contempt, and they're just a pain in the ass to kill. That was sort of the plan. However, I noticed that almost every single game, I would drop the Terminators in, they would double shoot, charge some shit, blow all this shit up, but then they would die in return, almost every time. So even though Armor of Contempt on Terminators is really good, it's not good enough to keep 10 2-wound Terminators alive when your opponent's entire army is gunning at them. So basically, I'm gambling that the Chosen are going to be less durable, but I'm gambling that it's not going to matter, because the Terminators always died anyway. So who cares? The Chosen are just going to die slightly faster, but who cares? The end result is going to be the same. But what I'm doing differently is I'm leveraging the Dreadclaw so that I can get that alpha strike. And that's going to pair really well with the Long War, which was one of the secondaries that I took in every game and often struggled to score in the first turn. Because basically, if my opponent goes first, that's good for me. Because basically, I put the Noise Marines somewhere where they're safe. Terminators were all in deep strike. Basically, my opponent couldn't hurt me. They would move out onto objectives. And then in my turn, the Noise Marines would go kill something, some objective, take an objective, do all this sort of stuff. However, if I had to go first, the challenge there was, okay, if they're hidden and they're only on their backfield objective, how am I taking that from them? The Noise Marines couldn't project that far. The Terminators were in deep strike. You know, they couldn't come down in turns 2 or 3. So I'm hoping that with this list, I'm going to be able to use the Chosen in the Dreadclaw as that turn 1 bomb. Then turn 2 will be more Terminators, 3 will be more Terminators, and then by turn 4, that's when the Rhino with Master of Executions and the other Chosen will be moving up into position and launching out attacks as well. So that's the sort of idea there. The other thing that I have changed, you'll notice, is that I went from a unit of 10 cultists and a unit of 5 Space Marines into 2 units of 10 cultists. This is purely just for points cost purposes, but it does actually also do something slightly differently for the list, because the thing about the cultists is they're basically there for raising banners, right? But what the cultists can do, because they're a bigger unit, is they can actually have one guy on this backfield objective and string out so that they're closer to a midfield objective, raise a banner on the backfield, and then next turn move 6 inches so they're now on that midfield objective and raise another banner. Whereas the 5 CSM, because they can't string out as far, if they're raising a banner on your backfield, they can't do anything else. Like, it's going to take them 2 turns minimum before they're in a midfield. And your opponent's just they're going to see what you're doing. They're going to see that those 5 CSM are headed towards that objective, and they're just going to blow them up. Which, to be fair, they could probably do with the cultists as well, but the cultists only require 1 turn. So if you have 2 units of cultists stringing out like that, you can go, cool, I'm raising a banner on my backfield, and next turn, one of those 2 units is probably going to make it, right? And then they're going to raise a banner on that. And that gives you 2 banners pretty early in the game, and then if you can keep pressuring them with Terminators and Chosen and Noise Marines and all this shit, just blowing them up and keep the fight focused on all of those units, hopefully you'll keep those banners for most of the game. And if you can keep 2 banners for the whole game, that's 10 points. And you only need to keep 2 banners. And generally speaking, what's going to happen is turn 1, I'll raise 1 banner, unless there's 2 in my deployment zone, but generally there's only 1. So I'm going to raise 1 banner. Turn 2, I'm going to raise another, and then turn 3, I'll raise another, and then turn 4, I'll probably raise another, but I'll probably lose 1. So you sort of end up with 3 from a couple of turns. And then depending on how the fight is going, if I'm just punching the fuck out of them and just killing them, then I'll raise more banners, you know, like the Terminators will go in, they'll punch, they'll blow stuff up, and then maybe their counterpunch leaves 1 Terminator alive, and then that 1 Terminator just goes off and raises his banner somewhere, you know. Or the Dark Apostle, his disciples, they go raise banners because the Dark Apostle's kind of a one-trick pony. He goes in, he does his once per game reroll all wounds trick, and then he's kind of just dead weight, you know. He can make a unit get +1 to hit, but often the Terminators are arriving from deep strike in the reinforcement step, and he has to do that in the command phase, so he doesn't really get to use that. He can use it on the Noise Marines, but generally by the time you've done that first play, the Noise Marines are almost all dead, because your opponent just goes, fuck that, I cannot leave them alive. So they just put everything on the Noise Marines and they kill them. So generally by turns 2 or 3, the Dark Apostle is kind of wasted. He's kind of an irrelevant unit. So he just goes out and raises banners as well. The Master of Executions, he can jump out, raise a banner, and then next turn jump back in his Rhino, or next turn, like if there's an objective hidden out of line of sight, he can do that. But basically, it's up to the cultists to get those early game banners raised so that I can rack up the points. So having 2 units of 10, I think, is going to be quite useful for the purposes of banners. And yeah, so that's generally the new list. This list, I think it's got a really nice symmetry to it as well. Like it's got 2 units cultists, 20 noise marines, almost 20 chosen, almost 20 20 terminators. So it's like 20, 20, 20, 20, which is kind of cool. I like symmetry. And then you've got the turn 1 bomb with the chosen, the turn 2 bomb with terminators, turn 3 bomb with more terminators. Meanwhile, they're fighting the middle ground for taking that off the noise marines is really good. I'm really happy with this list. I think it's going to be great, and I'm expecting good results. So I'll definitely keep you guys updated and let you know how it goes. It's next weekend. I submitted the list last night. So yeah, I'll keep you guys posted, and thanks for tuning in. Make sure if any of this felt like I was glossing over things or if I was going anything too fast, make sure you go back and check out my video on the Undefeated Emperor's Children list and my Master of Executions masterclass, because this is kind of like a part 3, if you will, in my Emperor's Children series. So if you go watch those 2, then this one, everything will make a lot more sense. And you'll sort of understand, okay, I get why the noise marines are there. I get why the relics are there. I get all that sort of stuff. So yeah, thanks for tuning in. A pleasure as always, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Cheers. Do your objective markers ever get lost behind terrain or other models and become difficult to see? Do they ever get bumped and accidentally moved during a game? And do they ever spark arguments about distances? Well, not anymore. Introducing the blog for the blood god, not even remotely patented Neoprene Objective Markers. Made from the same material as astronaut suits, or maybe military equipment, or probably neither of those things, this 2mm thick neoprene synthetic rubber is tear resistant, water resistant, and is designed to last. But that's not all. The blog for the blood god, not even remotely patented Neoprene Objective Markers come in a variety of different designs and styles to suit any faction represented in the Warhammer 40,000 universe. These objective markers are a perfect gift for yourself or a friend, and are a perfect way to flex and show your opponent that not only are you a smarter, cooler, and better 40k player than them, but you also have more disposable income than they do. For the low price of $25, you'll get not 1, not 2, but 6 neoprene objective markers, perfectly designed for 9th edition Warhammer 40k. But wait, there's more. For a limited time only, people who sign up on Patreon to support Blog for the Blood God as a Skull Champion tier $5 per month member will gain access to a custom design service where I will design a unique logo to support their gaming club, like the one I did to the left here for the Potato Farmers local gaming club here in Melbourne. Follow the links in the description of this video to pick up your set today.